doing a fireside chat with none other than Yamini Rangan, the newly anointed CEO, I guess a few months ago, of HubSpot, one of the leading CRM companies in the world. So welcome, Yamini, to the program.
Thank you so much, MR. It's such a delight to talk to you. I think you and I have had a journey for a very long time, so it's doubly exciting to be able to sit down and talk to you.
Absolutely. And it's such an amazing journey you've had, and I've witnessed it over the time you were at. I remember first when we met, you were at Aperio, this company that started onboarding people, I guess, to the cloud, if I remember right, in the old days. To then, you went on to Workday, which was a hugely successful company, and then on to, Dropbox, again, another company that went public with much fanfare. And now, you are the CEO of HubSpot, probably one of the top women executives. And that's why I'm so privileged and honored to this NPC be talking to executives like yourself to really bring that female voice into the conversation in the tech space. So walk us through your journey from Aperio now to becoming CEO of HubSpot, the trials, the tribulations, the challenges. There must have been many.
Well, I'll tell you that you played a huge part. You actually introduced me to Workday, and thank you for that introduction. It was like definitely a big shifting point in my career. But I'll tell my story and definitely the trials and tribulations of all of that. But I grew up in South India, super small town, and I tell the story that the town that I grew up in, it's called Udumalpet. It didn't have a high school at the time that I was growing up, and I obviously moved to a different town, to Coimbatore, to be able to finish high school. But my story has been, starting out as an engineer and then accidentally becoming a salesperson and a sales executive, and then finally ending up being a customer-focused executive, and now really honored to be a CEO, and certainly has been ups and downs throughout the journey. I'd say that for a lot of folks in India who start out as an engineer, it's just a phenomenal experience. For me, I can't code right now, but what I did take away from my engineering experience is first principles thinking, and that has been foundation for how I've made decisions, both small and large, is using first principles to kind of guide decision making. And after I finished business school, I actually thought I was joining marketing organization, found myself in sales, and that was probably one of the best accidental decisions I've kind of made in my career, because what sales taught me is just deep empathy for customers, and spend a lot of time in front of customers, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, in front of customers, how they make decisions, how buying patterns actually change, how executives put their careers online when they do make some really large bets in terms of companies. And that built a real deep empathy and respect for the purchasing process and buyers and customers within that process. And then that translated into me being a customer-focused executive. I think you mentioned Workday and Dropbox, and both of those organizations, I was really thrilled to be part of their hyper-growth journey. And part of being in a hyper-growth organization is to see patterns developing and be able to just be just ahead of the curve in terms of patterns developing. So I've learned a couple of lessons, MR, through all of that process, and then being at HubSpot right now. The first is that you just have to be obsessed with serving your customers. There is no shortcuts to it. And there's just no two ways about it. Like, you really have to think about your buyer's journey, your customers' journey, what their expectations are, and how that changes over a period of time. And we certainly have seen it change pretty dramatically over the last 18 months or so. And that is foundational. Learned it very early and continues to be the guiding principle in terms of how I lead HubSpot. The other thing I'd say is that I think early in my career, I was one of those individual contributors that worked the longest, and worked probably the hardest and worked the most, and that was early part of my career. One of the biggest mistakes I did was the first time I went from an individual contributor to being a manager. and followed exactly the same playbook of working longer than everybody and trying to get answers, faster than everybody. And then you realize it's absolutely the wrong principles as a manager and then as a leader. Because when you do transition from an individual contributor to a leader, you have to get really good at asking questions, not getting answers. You have to get really good at enrolling people, not commanding or providing, the direction to people. And that transition for me was bumpy. And what I learned in that bumpy transition is that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you have a great growth mindset and you know who to learn from, and you constantly are becoming better as a leader, and you continue to grow in your career. Then it leads you to greater and greater things. And so I'd say that the process of having a growth mindset and learning has been as important as all of my technical training, early in my career. But super grateful to be here at HubSpot. Just honored to be in a place where we care not just about our customers, but also about the culture that we are creating within the company.
Oh, that's terrific. But I have to ask you one question, and that is, as an entrepreneur or as an executive, you have to be prepared for the unknown. You have to be prepared to step in. You have to be prepared to take risk. And in your case, I know at HubSpot, you're a 40 billion market cap company now, and running this very important organization. But you had a point where your CEO had an accident, and he then made you the acting CEO, and then later on you became the CEO of the company. Walk us through you can't be prepared for that. Suddenly you get a call saying, I'm in the hospital, you're the CEO, and you go, how do I move forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. You really have to be prepared for the unknown. And I think the last couple of years have taught us the value of adaptability more than almost any other, value that you can have. And you're right, like this March, Brian Halligan, who's been our founder for 15 years, led the organization. He unfortunately met with an accident, and he did call me, and he called me from his hospital bed, and he basically said, I'm out for 6 months, and I think I need to, rest and just recover, and you need to take the operating line from here and run the company. And that was a hard call, right? It was hard first to make sure that Brian was going to be okay. Then, really acting from a place of deep empathy to give him the space that he needed, and he needed the space to recover. And we wanted to make sure of that. And then actually looking at what needed to be done. The great part about, HubSpot, especially that point of the year, is that we had a clear strategy. We have a fantastic leadership team that is just exceptionally accountable. So we got together, and it was a Sunday afternoon. We said, okay, here's what we need to do. Here's the game plan. And it was much more about making sure that we really gave Brian the space and executed to make him really proud. And that was, honestly, the first 6 months, of that. And then I got another call. And this time it was, in late summer, and he calls me up, and we're chit-chatting, and I'm asking how his health is. And he goes like, my health is great, but I have a presentation for you, and we need to talk, he says. And I was like, you have a presentation for me? This is like literally the first time that Brian, my boss, has presented to me. And I was like very curious. So he starts walking me through his decision-making process from where he was and what he's looking to do, where the company needs to go, and all of the details that he walked the board through. And it led up to, well, therefore, we want you to be the CEO of the company. And that was also a moment where, first off, there is this enormity of stepping into a role after a legendary founder, right? There's always a difference of stepping in after a CEO and stepping in after a founder CEO. And in this case, Brian happens to be just phenomenal. I have so much respect for what Brian and Dharmesh have created at HubSpot. And then second, MR, you'll relate to this, like my entire life flashed in front of my eyes, from where I grew up to, how my parents sacrificed a whole lot, to making decisions throughout my life on how you balance career as well as your personal life, to getting that call. And it was just a moment of, oh my God, this is quite big. And so I took my time, and again, just super grateful to kind of be where I am, and have the combination of Brian and Dharmesh and myself leading this organization over the next few years. It's an exciting journey and a great chapter ahead.
Fantastic, fantastic. And now, the whole world over the last 2 years, Yamini, has to face this COVID crisis, right? And every company has gone digital first, digital only, and all that movement has happened. And you sit at a vantage point of being able to look at all this stuff, and you have thousands of customers. So what is your perspective on this whole digitization? And some people are now saying digital only, and some are saying other things. What's your take on all that stuff?
MR, I think this was a trend that was already happening that just got accelerated into hyperdrive over the last 18 to 24 months. If you really step back, HubSpot started, almost like 15 years ago. And for the last decade, we've noticed a singular trend in terms of customers, which is that there was a huge shift that was happening in terms of how you reached customers. It was not the old ways of interrupting your customers, and remember sitting in a dinner table and getting a call. That was not what marketing was about. It was much more about digital assets that created value and therefore attracted you to a particular company. And that is the entire point of view for inbound, which was what HubSpot's methodology has been for the last 15 years. And so I think it's been a shift that has been happening. And then over the last few years, it has been a bigger shift. We call it, from a customer perspective, there is one truth, which is your customer experience needs to be seamless and as digital and as flawless as possible. Beautiful customer experience. That has been the trend that we've seen over the past decade. Now, what happened is that in the last 18 to 24 months, small, medium, large companies that did not have a plan for delivering digital, delightful customer experiences, that didn't have a plan for reaching customers through digital for marketing or having inbound sales, they just needed to do it. They needed to do it really, really quickly. It became almost survival. And so there was this moment, MR, probably March and April of last year, where it was are we going to survive or are we going to die as a company? And a lot of great pundits basically said small, medium businesses are going to crumble. In fact, that did not happen. And if you look at why that did not happen, it's because small, medium businesses embrace technology like they have never before, to go through digital transformation, because that was the way for them to survive. And a lot of them have accelerated through the pandemic, and that's mostly by digital transformation of their front office, back office processes, ability to connect to their customers, ability to have seamless conversations, beautifully delightful conversations with customers. And I think this is going to continue. This is not going back. I don't think we're going to come back next year in 2022 and say digital first is not going to happen. I think it's here to stay. And we've seen this massive transformation happen in 18 months that probably would have taken a decade for us to see. So it's a pretty unique moment of how technology has enabled and accelerated growth for a lot of companies.
Awesome. HubSpot is a world-class company that you're running now, and the theme of NPC this year is becoming world-class company, if you're coming from India. So what are your thoughts for the CEOs and entrepreneurs who are watching us now in terms of what they need to be thinking about, what their mindset needs to be, and what are some of the to-dos as they kind of start their journeys?
I love this question. And I love the focus of the whole conference being world-class. I think that's the drive for every business leader. How do you create an enduring organization that lives far beyond you and that future generations can be proud of. And we certainly think a lot about it. And I break it down into almost 4 fundamentals. The first one is customer obsession. No matter what stage you are as a company, whether you're a startup, you're a scale up, you're a very large enterprise, you just have to have the customer obsession built into the DNA of the company. Now, that is somewhat self-serving. I came from being a chief customer officer, and I've done those roles. But I'll tell you, what I've found is companies that build it into the culture and DNA, rather than take customer centricity as an annual initiative or an improvement area, there's just clear difference between those two. And customer obsessed companies are world class. I think the second thing I'd say is people focused companies. And it's almost, for us at HubSpot, we say, product is important and culture is just equally important. It's as important as the product, and we continuously evolve the culture to be world class. And you got to think about people and culture as much as you think about your customers and the market. And again, this applies to almost any stage of the company, whether you're a startup or scale up or a very large enterprise. And then third, I would say, is just clarity in strategy. As a leader, you have to make choices. A lot of the choices that you make will direct the next decade of your company's growth and whether you're going to be a world-class company or not. And sometimes the choices that you make are also what not to do. Both are equally important. And so at HubSpot, we spend a lot of time thinking about where we play and where we will not play. The omissions are as important in directing an organization's focus as what we do want to do. And so the third thing would be just clarity in strategy. And I'd say the fourth final thing is just exceptional execution. It almost beats everything else. You just have to be relentlessly focused on doing a few things exceptionally well and making sure that the organization has the clarity. And so to me, world class has to include each of these 4 components. And then really making sure that you're constantly serving your right customers, you have the right leadership team, you have the right strategy, and you have the right execution, going through a loop on this constantly and being very clear about each of the priorities that you have in these 4, to me, constitutes building a world-class organization.
No, that's terrific advice coming from you. Now HubSpot is growing, and you need to hit kind of the next level, right? And so I think you've set up a platform fund, and you're looking at partnering with companies, investing in smaller companies, and so forth. So what is the strategy for the company? How does one view HubSpot now as a means of getting investment, but also mean a good partner for them?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Look, I think we are going through a fairly big transformation as a company. We started as a marketing apps company. That is kind of how we got started. And then we've transformed from there to being a CRM suite company to a CRM platform. And I think that transformation has basically taken us on a journey where the broader ecosystem is really important. As we've gone from marketing app to CRM suite to a CRM platform, that's just an exceptionally important part. And that's our strategy. Our strategy is to be the #1 CRM platform for scaling companies. And therefore, when we created this growth fund, it's a $100 million growth fund. And we want to encourage other companies that are also focused on helping our customers grow, and seed them and help them through the early stages. And so as you think about that, what is important, having a world-class CRM suite is important. So we're investing in hubs, which would be marketing, sales, service, and providing a seamless experience for our customers. Investing in our platform, which is making it extensible, making it something that our partners can develop as well as our customers can continue to develop. And then making sure that as we do that, we are seeding an entire ecosystem to grow as well. And so it's very aligned with our strategy, and we're excited to see what comes out of this fund. We've been, we've had similar funds in the past, but this is a bigger scale as well as clearly aligned to our strategy of helping millions of organizations grow. And so we're excited to see what comes out of it.
Oh, that's great. Today, Indian American executives are in the news more often than not, and in a good way, with now Twitter having an Indian CEO, as we learned recently, right, Parag? But you are unique in that you're the only woman technology executive of a large company. So what do you say to women entrepreneurs in the audience and women who are getting into the tech field? What do you ask of them, and how do you have them look at their journeys as and you as a role model in that case?
Well, I mean, it's great to have so many successful Indian leaders within the tech community, and I learn from them and hopefully contribute to all of them. And I'll say for women out there, dream big. I was not anyone special. Grew up in a fairly small town. Didn't have access, to big cities and everything. But I would say that I have parents who believed in me, who absolutely supported me, and prodded me to dream big. I think my mom fed me with ambition as she was feeding dinner for us, and so it was really that clear kind of ambition to do the best. It was not about reaching a particular title, role, or size of organization. It was really to do my personal best every single day. And so it really comes from that desire to do something great. And so dream really big. The second thing is go look out for mentors. There are people that are out there to help you. I'd say that, MR, many times in my career, I've actually come to you and said, hey, this is a decision I'm trying to make, and you've been super generous and kind. And I think it's important for people to be able to look around and look for mentors and ask for just guidance in terms of the career. And that's really been helpful in terms of my own growth path. And then just keep advocating for yourself. Advocate for yourself at work. Advocate for yourself at home. I know it's always you're trying to balance both work as well as your personal life, and it's a hard balance, but advocate for yourself in both places. And so that's my advice. And I will tell you that I'm passionate about this. I don't want to be the only person out here. I want to have the floodgates open with more women, more people of color become leaders. And so if there's anything that I can do for the community, that I'm all in for that.
Fantastic. Yamini, this has been a wonderful session. You've been so inspiring. Your journey has been amazing. And, we wish you all the best in your role. And we'll loop back with you another time and find out and get another update as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, MR. Really a pleasure joining you. And thank you for inviting me here. Good luck, everyone.